if there ever was an image for the ages. The scribble of the pen. The pile of files. Each one an executive order from the new president.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Each one affecting profound change.
Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Each one a major story in their own right.
This is an executive order taking a large number of executive actions to secure our southern border.
Okay.
This was the end of a dizzying day. Look at the faces on his chiefs of staff. Then an impromptu news conference in an Oval Office that is now his again.
I'll be meeting with President Putin.
And hints of the future on whatever topic you choose.
You know, Gaza's interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather. You know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it.
And then,
hey, everybody, welcome back. It's week 1 recap of the Trump administration, a.k.a. the Flying Monkey Circus. I want to get started right into this. So there were a lot of campaign promises made, and a lot of us called hooey when it was being said. A lot of people believed in it. A lot of people had their hopes pinned on it. To most of us, it's been a major disappointment. Let's talk about the big one right up front. There has been no end to the Ukrainian war. There are people still dying. Ukrainian people losing their buildings and their living and their homes and their families. Russian troops scripted in to fight in the war, and now North Korean soldiers who have not only a geographical disadvantage, they have a language disadvantage, and some of them are deciding to come over to the Ukrainian side just to get out of this mess. So the big promise, week 1, he was going to end the war. Yeah, not so much. And the call to Mr. Putin apparently didn't come out. It didn't happen. And yeah, that's right. Putin was busy with Xi signing a new alliance for their two countries. So, sorry, Donald, I guess they were busy. So, yeah, we were going to end the high prices of food and eggs. Hell, there's no eggs in some stores now. That's not due to anything other than the bird flu right now. Groups of poultry farms, and unfortunately some cattle farms that have also been infected too, are being slaughtered down not to be able to be used for food for we the people. They're just being destroyed because of the epidemic of the bird flu right now. There were several executive orders, as you saw in the opening clip. I mean, I've been around a few days, as most of you can show and see. I've never seen the number of executive orders sitting on anyone's desk ever before. Let's start out with one that weakens our U.S. military. He has put a ban on transgender military service, an executive order prohibiting transgender individuals from serving in the U.S. military. Well, wait a minute, Donald. There are 15,500 transgender people, according to your numbers, serving either in active duty, reserves, or in some other form of honorable service. Your directive there also eliminates diversity, equity, inclusion, which I think you demonstrated in firing, I believe it was the admiral or the captain in charge of the U.S. Coast Guard, blaming her for the border problem. I'm not sure how the U.S. Coast Guard had anything to do with that, although I do know that the Coast Guard has active duty in the Gulf of Mexico. Show me how that equates to people walking across the border where you were building a fence. I'm sure I know the reason you got rid of her. The big one that really scratched my head, and I can only imagine what the enormous cost of this is going to be, but he wants to develop a missile defense system very similar to what the Israelis call the Iron Dome, and he wants to do that over the United States. I don't recall in the last 72 years that my butt's been on the ground or that my father's butt was on the ground that he told me about the history back when, from his days in the military and forward, of anybody ever attacking the United States with missiles. Okay? He claims that it's to defend against Russia, China, and Iran. Well, Iran doesn't have intercontinental ballistic missile capability the last I knew. I could be wrong, but I'll check that out later on. and Russia and China. I thought these were your boys. I thought there was a bromance going on between you and Putin and Xi and what's Rocket Man there in North Korea that has a lot of ballistic missile rockets that you didn't mention in your news clip. Why do we need an Iron Dome missile defense system? I just don't get it at all. Okay, one of the ones that's really been met with a lot of rebuke and will be met with it for even further was his revocation of birthright citizenship. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a 14th Amendment deal. The U.S. Constitution guarantees anyone born on U.S. soil, with very few exceptions. I think the only one that I know of right now is that if a foreign dignitary is here on business, but he is still a national and is going back to his country, his children are considered their own nationality. Other than that, if you're born on soil here, you're given American citizenship. Yeah, his executive order has met with several, I believe the last count was 22 different lawsuits that will tie him up for a long time to come and waste time and money for we the people. Getting into Department of Government Efficiency, put Elon in there, and then his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, booted Elon across the street to the executive building. His office is going to be over there. It's not going to be in the White House. He's not going to get a chance to sit in on the Oval Office conversations like he has been doing. And wait, just this morning, Elon announced he's got a new venture going on that he's going to be being involved in AI, and that's going to take up a lot of his time. So which is it? Is he working for Donald? Is he working for himself? I got a feeling being booted out of the office might have had an effect on his anxiousness to work in Doge. And speaking of Doge, what happened to Vivek Ramaswamy? He quit. He's running for governor. I think he's running for governor of the state of Ohio. I've got a close friend over there in the state of Ohio. If you're hearing this, I'd like to hear from you. I want to know what you think about this guy coming in and wanting to run your state. Okay? But I digress. There's the withdrawal of the World Health Organization. He's worried about the cost of it. The World Health Organization was key during the COVID issue. It was key during Ebola in Africa. It was key during several pandemic, epidemic type situations around the world. And yes, we spent money into it. We spent more than other people. We all know that. Why? We have the best economy going in the world. Our GDP is in excess of most all of the third world nations. Okay, it even rivals a few of the European Economic Union countries. There's no way they can hold a candlestick to what we're doing right now. But, it's like a yo-yo with the World Health Organization. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. Make up your mind and stop making us foolish looking. One of the ones that really smacked of white male insecurity and racism was the restoration of Mount McKinley's name. The name of Mount McKinley, America's tallest mountain, was Denali. It was Denali for a reason. It was for the American Indians that lived there, for the national tribe. It was renamed to take it out of a Confederate general's name. Well, you switched it back. Are we going to start putting the statues up in the streets of the southern states again? Are we going to put the Confederate soldiers up? Are we going to be looking at trying to raise the South again? No offense against the Southern people. I'm only disparaging the Confederate Army of old. And then there's the ultimate display of white male insecurity. Why did we have to name or rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America? Google, you were on my really good graces, but you're the first to bend the knee that I heard today. You actually put out a public statement indicating that you were going to change it on all your maps. Donnie, pull your zipper up. Your insecurity's showing. Then there's the useless information that most people have gotten past for a long time. No disrespect to the Kennedy or the King family. You have my respects for what happened to your family. Declassifying John and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King's assassination reports did nothing to heal the Americans or to give us back any type of economy for we the people. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I've said it before on other podcasts, keep your eye on the ball. This is smoke and mirrors. While he's got his hand up over here doing this, showing you what he's doing for you, he's got his other hand in your pocket. Real vindictiveness here. You ended the security details for Bolton, Pompeo, and Fauci. Wow. You left them hanging out, while you had security. While you as an ex-president had security, and now that you're back in, you have security. You're not worried about that. You just kind of let them dangle in the wind. And Pompeo, he was your boy. Your chief of staff kicked Elon out to the executive building. I wonder why you didn't do it. You stopped all domestic and foreign federal aid this morning. Officially at 5 o'clock today, you will end the federal aid going out with the exception of Social Security and Medicare, which leaves me wondering about FEMA in particular. Are you going to stop the Federal Emergency Management Association's money, put it in suspension until sometime in February when you decide what you're going to do with this, or your staff decides for you and you puppet on a string, say yes to whatever it is that they want? I really want to know the answer to that. By the way, 5 minutes before I started this podcast on the Financial News Network, CNBC, up popped a notice that, and let me get this straight on the names here, the National Council of Nonprofit and the American Public Health Association have filed suit to stay your order on the federal funding money. They filed it in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. You're familiar with that place. You've been there before. So we'll see how that one works out for you. By the way, I didn't see Putin or Xi at your inauguration. I thought you guys were buddies. Thought you were going to end the war. This next one really puts a bone in my throat here. You released all of the J6 people that were serving their time in jail for either sentences they were convicted of or that they pled guilty to. You said you would have to look at them on a case-by-case basis. Your vice president said that no violent criminals would be released. And according to the reports from someone that was in the room with you at that moment, 15 minutes into deciding who was going to get a pardon, who was going to get a commutation, you said, fuck it, and let them all go. Not all of them got pardons. Only the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio and his band of misfits, the Proud Boys, were given complete pardons. The rest of the world, along with Stewart Rhodes, were given commutations. Well, shortly thereafter, 24 hours after that, Stewart Rhodes was found in the Capitol building, the scene of the crime, and he was back there with a Republican House of Representatives person. I'm not going to say that person's name. I've already said it in another podcast. I'm not out to do any harm to him. I just think it was a poor choice. It could have been thought out better. And oh yeah, by the way, Stewart had to appear in front of the judge who has now ordered him to stay out of the city of Washington, D.C. without court permission. If you want back in, you got to call the judge. Phone it in, babe, but you're not getting back in. Now, the one that really gets me up and get me going is a gentleman named, let me get his name right here, Matthew Huddle. Matthew Huddle was a 42-year-old gentleman who, along with his uncle, were in jail for the insurrection and the riots at the Capitol from January 6th. Huddle was given a parole. So apparently he's associated in some way, or was mistakenly associated in some way, with the Proud Boys. That lasted less than 48 hours when Mr. Huddle was pulled over on a regular routine traffic stop. He resisted arrest and was later found to be in possession of a handgun, and that possession led to a gun battle and his death. He was killed by a patrolman who was fighting for his own life from a guy who had just been released and was out thanks to you, Donald. The next thing I want to talk about is the ongoing grift. The House Republican annual policy retreat being held this week at, you guessed it, Doral Golf Course. 3 days worth of lavish spending, resorting, golfing, and whatnot are being charged to the U.S. government. All those people from the House Republicans will be charging that to their budget, to their expense accounts. We, the people, pay for. And this is basically called the House Republican Annual Policy Retreat, where they will discuss what they'll be doing with the president's initiatives. In other words, I'm going to tell you what to do. You're going to shake your head yes like a good puppet. Then, and folks, this is all 1 week. We're just talking about this morning is 7 days. You have managed to fire 17 attorneys generals from the U.S. government. In case you don't know what an attorney general is, they're watchdogs. They're the people that watch over the different agencies and groups within the U.S. government and report on waste, mismanagement, abuse, things like that. I wonder why he doesn't want those people around. I just don't get it. I guess the end of my rant is going to be, what does any of this do to lower the cost of living, to improve our financial security, and to make we the people feel better that you got elected and you're running the country right now? I'm not sure what all is going on there. I'm not sure what all you want that missile defense silo system for or anything like that. But it's costing us, we the people, the American taxpayers, is costing us money. So, better luck in week 2. I'll be back to recap that. Again, the Orange Antichrist Flying Monkey Circus, no disrespect to flying monkeys. With that, folks, I'm going to call it a day. You have an absolutely wonderful evening, and thank you for being here. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit the button. Thank you, and have a wonderful night.